Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and today we are talking about why we play Standard. So I'm giving basically 5 reasons or 5 little arguments for why Standard is something that you should consider playing. About once a league, typically about halfway through the life cycle of a league, usually about halfway through the timeline of a league, you start to see more and more players talk about how a league starts to die, and I'm using the air quotes there, that less and less people play the league, and more players either migrate over and just start paying attention to their characters in Standard, or people take a break from Path of Exile altogether, waiting for news and announcements, essentially the hype train to sell tickets for the next particular league that is coming down the pipeline. Now, there are a lot of people that only play Path of Exile in leagues, but I feel like there is a misrepresentation a lot of the time amongst content creators, amongst Twitch users, amongst YouTube users, and even amongst various forum users and discussion forum threads that simply favor discussing the league rather than discussing Path of Exile in terms of Standard. This is one of the reasons why we've got our Standard special playlist, which often I try to update about once to twice per league. So every couple of months I try to go back whenever I'm playing in Standard again and try to update things that are going on in Standard that I think are interesting, that would be worthwhile to you all as players, things that would be valuable to know. Well, the reason why I play Standard, just a couple of the reasons, a couple of the many reasons why, can be boiled down into these little 5 points of reasons to play Standard. So first off, with the 5th one, it's the sandbox mode. It's the sandbox mode of Path of Exile. So a lot of the times when you are sitting around, maybe you're waiting for a new league, maybe you are in class or at work, or you're on a family holiday and you're thinking, oh, I wonder about a new build that I could try out, or oh man, these are some mechanics that I was reading about the other day. I wonder if I could make these mechanics and smash them onto this ascendancy and maybe get it to work somehow, and maybe I can throw in a few utility gems. So theory crafting oftentimes is serviced by having characters available in Standard, because Standard really is the sandbox mode of Path of Exile. Once a league, whenever there is a update or change to the passive tree, Path of Exile, Grinding Gear Games, goes in and they give you this notice, which is full passive skill reset. It says your character has been granted a 1-use full passive skill reset. If you allocate or refund any other passives before using this opportunity, then it will be lost. So in other words, you click reset all passives and boom, this will reset all of your passive skills permanently until you so choose as to use those passive skills again and reallocate them. So essentially, once a league, you get anywhere between, let's say 10 if you're a low-level character and you've only completed or played through Act 1, all the way to over 100 different passives that you can simply refund once a league. Normally, you'd have to use an Orb of Regret or a Book of Regret in order to get regret points in order to tweak your build or go back in and completely change a build. But with Standard, every single league, essentially for every character that you have in Standard, you're getting a full free reset. It's a full character reset. So one of the reasons why I love to play Standard is because it's the sandbox mode. Once a league, I can go back in and try out all sorts of different wonderful things. Right now, I am trying out this character, which I'm just trying to increase the move speed on. I'm just trying to jack the move speed on this character as ridiculously as possible, so that way I can run really, really fast through Blood Aquas, just to test how fast we can make a character. And then I like to race my own characters against one another to see what setup is actually fastest. Anyway, that's an aside, but that's just one example of the sorts of things that you can try out and mess around with inside Standard, because it really is the sandbox mode of Path of Exile. Now, reason number 4, counting down, is continuity. So a lot of the time, players, and especially new players, will complain about that they cannot maintain their map pool inside a league. A new player joins the game and they start playing in a league and they really, really enjoy it, but then they'll start to run into a wall once they get to a certain point in maps. That could be white maps, it could be yellow maps, it could be red maps. A lot of the time, players, once they get to mapping, they feel like they hit a wall. It could even be that they've gone and taken down Shaper, but then they hit a wall in terms of farming Uber Elder, or maybe they had somebody else pay for completions on certain maps. So a lot of the times when I'm in leagues, I won't necessarily particularly specialize a build every single league to solo complete every single map. A lot of the time I will pay for somebody else to come in and complete something like Hall of Grandmasters or Shaper or getting Uber Elder down. A lot of the times that's a great way to fill out your atlas, to fill it back up if your own build can't progress through particular maps. In Standard, one of the things that's great is you've always got your atlas and it carries over every single league. So right now, this atlas that you're seeing right here is a fresh atlas on this character because I've done no progress on this particular character with my atlas. It's been completely wiped. It's been completely reset for the atlas that I'm working on here. So I can refill out this entire atlas. However, if I log on to another character and show you in another space, the atlas actually carries over depending on which atlas you have active. So a lot of the times, this is really, really nice because if you want to progress through Standard and you're not necessarily going to progress to Shaper or to whatever goal it is that you have, yellow maps, red maps, etc., or a certain completion percentage, you can actually push for those goals in Standard, whereas you wouldn't be able to push for those goals inside of a league because it would simply be too difficult for your character. Maybe that's because you've got family commitments, life commitments, work commitments, job commitments, romantic relationships, whatever, but maybe it's that you just won't have the time in league to be able to do what you want to do. And so continuity is provided in Standard, that every single league that you're playing, you have continuity as you're filling out your atlas, as you're building a character. This also plays into gear and towards builds. So I came to my hideout because I wanted to show you inside here. I've got all of these different tabs that are just filled with all sorts of different stuff. So one of the things that I really like to do is I like to organize all this different unique stuff that I've gotten throughout my various leagues in Path of Exile, and I like to just organize stuff and then basically hoard it and trophy case it here inside Standard. And Standard allows me the continuity to do that, so that way I can actually go back in time essentially and reminisce about different characters and different stuff that I've got unlocked from previous leagues. Like right here, these face breakers, these 652% more face breaker or more physical damage face breakers. The quick story on that, continuity of it, are that these face breakers were some of the first pair of weapons that are first pair of unique weapons that I ever found inside Path of Exile. Does anybody else know about that? Does anybody else really care about that? No, but it provides continuity for me that I can go back and look and see how far my characters have come and how they've progressed. And then if I want to min-max my characters, I can do that inside Standard for a much longer period of time. So for instance, if you want to get several best in slot sorts of gear, a lot of the time you won't be able to do that inside a league because it's simply not enough time. And so playing Standard League allows you to have the sort of continuity in your character that allows for a longer play arc and a longer development of your character. It's really great, the continuity that Standard provides. The third reason is that progression continues. So as progression continues, talking a little bit about continuity and progression, as progression continues on your character, we all like to min-max our characters in Path of Exile, right? We all like to see our characters grow from a level 1 exile on the beach, trying to kill a zombie with our bare hands or a string and a bow that we found, or a knife or a shank in the case of the assassin. And we see that character transform from this helpless, hopeless refugee on the shores just outside Lion Eyes Watch to this awesome, amazing character that has got unique abilities, that has got the story that's built into all of the different demigods and all of the different bosses that they've taken down and all of the different people that they've rescued, all of the different things and creatures they've butchered. That progression continues in Standard, and that all dies, of course, every single league. Every single league there is a nice little bow that's wrapped up on a character that says this character's done, it's no longer here in this league, you cannot access it here. Whereas in Standard you actually get to continue working on those characters. So really quickly, looking at all of these different characters that I've got in Standard, not all of these are characters that I'm particularly working on in any particular order, but all of these are characters that I want to continue making progress on, because one of my personal goals is to have one level 80 ascendancy in each ascendancy, one character in each ascendancy at level 80, so that way every single league I can go back in and mess around and theorycraft and sandbox my ideas in Standard League. progression like that continues. Right here, this is Bunk Moreland, my level 56 Trickster, which I haven't touched for a very long time, simply because he was super duper annoying to play. I was not happy with his playstyle, but nonetheless, at some point, I'm either going to go and finish Bunk and get him up to level 80, or I'm going to go build a new Trickster. So each of these characters has got a story behind it, from where it started, where it's hoping to go, and to ultimately, eventually, where it's actually going to end up. This character was one character that I've been progressing on. It is ridiculous. It's got aspect of the spider as well as despair, and then it does all sorts of funny things where you're casting Dark Pact using Poet's Pen off of skeletons, and you just basically sit in a corner and you spam Dark Pact off of these skeletons, and you just watch bosses explode. Anyway, really fun character. I never would have built this character in a league. Never would have built this character in a league, simply because in terms of progressing through content, filling out an atlas, even just having fun as leveling, not necessarily a great option in a league where you've got all this condensed time, you've got a condensed timeline, but the progression on this character continues because I enjoy playing him, and every once in a while I boot him up in standard to see where he's at and what the next item that I want to get him, where that is, what's the next priority for continuing this particular character. So the progression continues in standard. All right, the second reason why people play standard, or at least why I play standard, is that everything is in standard. So I've already shown you right here in the stash just all of the different tabs that come in, and I don't even have a lot of tabs. You see a lot of Twitch streamers, you see a lot of YouTubers, you talk to other people in guilds. Lots of people have got lots of supporter packs and have spent a ton of money on the game. I've spent a little bit of money on the game, but all of this stuff comes to standard. All of your stuff comes to standard. Everything comes to standard. We're talking about legacy gear. We're talking about stuff that every single time there is a weapon, an item, a flask, a map, anything that gets changed, well, guess what? It remains in its current state for the most part in standard, unless Grinding Gear goes back in and does a retroactive nerf on everything in standard. But this creates a really interesting economic experience where you have these legacy items that simply won't drop. There aren't new items that are being created throughout the game. One great example of a really, really expensive item in standard is a legacy Comb's Heart. We all know Comb's Heart as being the unique chess piece that gives you 500 life. And, well, in standard, the legacy one used to give you 1,000. So just absolutely ridiculous the amount of life that's available on that thing. You would never, literally, you could never get that item inside a regular league unless they designed legacy drops to drop in the league. And so all of that stuff is available in standard, and that makes it really, really cool. Whenever you're theory crafting or want to go back and change characters and mess around, try something new or try something different, or even revisit a concept that you used to have on a build, you can do that in standard because chances are you've probably got the currency to go back and buy something, or you've got the gear already required for it. And you never know, as you're going back through your old stash tabs, you may actually find that you've got some legacy gear. I found that this was a couple of leagues ago, I remember, I found that I had a legacy Chevrons, and so I was able to sell that for quite a pretty penny that paid for a couple of different characters to get upgrades and changes in standard. So that was really, really cool to see that. So everything goes to standard, and that allows you a ton of different options for how you'd like to progress or how you'd like to experience standard. It's really great to look back, not just to reminisce, but then to even use the stuff that's available in standard and see how it either trivializes the content or changes the way that you can actually even play the game. Lastly, of course, we've been chatting about it, gear. So legacy and best in slot. We were just chatting a little bit about Comb's Heart, legacy Comb's Heart. Legacy items in Path of Exile are incredibly rare, are incredibly cool. And then best in slot items for your particular build are probably only available in standard. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Oftentimes, new items when they come in, or new stats that are available on items, they of course are introduced through a league, but then they get tweaked, they get nerfed, they get changed, and then whatever is best for the game in terms of the perspective of GGG sticks around, and then it migrates over to standard. So one of the really cool things about playing in standard is that all of this gear that essentially allows new affixes, prefixes, suffixes to come into the game, new corruptions to come into the game, new implicits to come into the game, new helm enchants to come into the game, all of these different new things that come into the game, new drops from divination cards, new uniques, right? Shaper and Elder, when they were first announced, delve affixes that were announced, right? All of these different things that come into the game, when they migrate into standard, they really change all of the different combinations that you can do, because you can look back and go, oh wow, I really have this one best in slot piece of gear that's really, really awesome for my particular build. But what if I could throw like a shaper suffix on there? Or what if I could throw an elder prefix on there? Or oh wow, what if I could now go and farm this div card rather than farming this other div card? What if I can farm this new div card, which will drop something new for my character that I could really, really use, or that I could sell, that will infuse and bring something new into the economy? So a lot of the times people think of standard as like, oh, that's just like the graveyard of PoE. That's where builds and characters and items go to die. But for a lot of us that really enjoy PoE and continue to play PoE even halfway through a league, standard is alive and thriving. It's a spot where, because of legacy gear, because everything is in standard, because the progression on your character continues, because there's continuity from league to league, and because it offers a sandbox mode for you to play around in, really makes standard appealing. Anyway, those are some reasons why I enjoy playing PoE in standard and trying out and messing around with different things. But that's just my opinion. What are some of the reasons why you enjoy standard? Or maybe what are some reasons why you don't play standard? Maybe halfway through a league you say, I'm done with the league and I'm going to take a break from Path of Exile. I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts down below. You can leave us a comment, and as always, thanks so much for watching. You can hit like and subscribe with the little bell to get new notifications about new daily PoE content. And as always, I hope today is the day a Mirror of Kalandra drops for you in Standard League. I hope you get one in Standard and you can get some awesome best in slot gear.